Nobody believed it when the first dealer notice leaked. Glock, the brand built on consistency, the one you could set your watch by, just killed 7 of its own pistols. Not side models, not experiments, core guns that defined the last 40 years. Effective November 30th, they're gone, and the next morning a completely rebuilt V-Series takes their place. Collectors are calling it the biggest Glock shift since the 1980s, and they're not exaggerating. This isn't an upgrade, it's a scramble to survive. Multiple state and city lawsuits, mounting federal pressure, and a wave of illegal switch conversions left Glock with one move: tear down the design and start again. Slides, triggers, frames, every part re-engineered under legal fire. For owners, this means your everyday carry might have just become a historical piece overnight. The clock is running, and once the deadline hits, the era of the classic Glock ends. In this video, we're breaking down exactly what's happening, the 7 models being discontinued, why Glock was forced into this redesign, and what it means for every gun owner moving forward. Let's see which 7 are disappearing and why. The 7 Glock models being discontinued. Seven Glock 17 Gen 5, the original standard. It started everything. The Glock 17 changed sidearms forever when it debuted in the 1980s. Lightweight, high capacity, and nearly indestructible. Every other polymer pistol since has been chasing it. Now that Legend's Gen 5 era officially ends. On November 30th, shipments stop. On December 1st, the V-Series takes over. The 17V may look similar, but it's a different creature inside. Redesigned internals, new backplate geometry, tighter legal compliance. If you want a piece of Glock's purest bloodline, this is your last chance to buy it new. Once those final Gen 5s leave warehouses, the pistol that built Glock's reputation becomes history. 6 Glock 22 Gen 5, the duty icon. For 2 decades, this was the law enforcement pistol of America. Full-size .40S and W, 15 rounds on tap, carried by everyone from FBI agents to state troopers. Now it's being phased out with no V-Series replacement planned. Departments nationwide abandoned .40 after ballistic tests proved modern 9mm loads equal in performance with less recoil and cost. Surplus trade-ins are flooding the market, but brand new G22s are finished for good. The gun that defined duty carry has officially clocked out. 5 Glock 34 Gen 5, the competition standard. Ask any USPSA shooter what dominated range tables for years, and they'll point to the G34. Its extended slide and match-grade accuracy made it the sweet spot between competition precision and service reliability. Yet even this crowd favorite didn't survive the cut. There's no 34V listed, only memories of 5-inch barrels and tight groupings. When the last box is shipped, the long slide champion exits the stage, leaving sports shooters scrambling to grab the last factory-fresh examples. 4 Glock 23 Gen 5, the compact .40 survivor. Compact frame, .40 power, once the golden ratio of American police pistols. The G23 ruled the 2000s before the 9mm renaissance took over. Today, Glock's quietly pulling the plug with zero V-Series successor in sight. The FBI's testing changed everything. 9mm matched 40 ballistics with softer recoil and cheaper training costs. The result? Demand collapsed. If you still trust the 40 caliber punch, this Gen 5 model is your last chance to own it brand new. After November 30th, it joins the history shelf. 3 Glock 45 Gen 5, the crossover workhorse. A G19 slide married to a G17 frame. That clever hybrid became one of Glock's biggest successes. Agencies loved its handling, civilians loved its capacity, and it proved the perfect balance between carry and control. But even this modern star isn't safe. The 45 volt is coming, though only as a limited MOS dealer exclusive at launch. Translation: higher prices, fewer hands. If you want the optics-free Gen 5 classic trusted by federal agencies, the clock's ticking fast. 2 Glock 17L Gen 5, the long slide legend. 6 inches of barrel, competition pedigree, and rarity baked in, the 17L was a shooter's dream few could ever find in stores. Glock only produced a handful each year, and now they've stopped completely. There's no 17LV on the horizon, which means its price curve is already climbing. Collectors know what that means. The 17L is shifting from cool find to grail gun. If you see one in 2025, expect it behind glass with an extra 0 on the tag. 1 Glock 19 Gen 5, the everyday carry king. This is the one everyone owns, or wishes they did. Compact enough to conceal, large enough to fight with, the G19 became the world's most carried handgun. But even kings retire. The Gen 5 version, the gold standard of balance and reliability, is being replaced by the 19V. The new version keeps the familiar outline, but changes enough internally to make part swapping a headache. Inventories are already thinning as buyers grab the last proven generation before the uncertain next one arrives. Once they're gone, that perfect just right Glock officially becomes part of the past. Why Glock is making this move? Let's talk about how all this really started, because Glock didn't decide to rebuild its pistols out of boredom or marketing ambition. It was boxed in by lawsuits and headlines that kept piling up. Industry filings and public suits say the company is now fighting legal action from more than a dozen states: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, the District of Columbia, Hawaii, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, and Oregon, plus major cities like Chicago and Baltimore. Each complaint makes a similar claim that Glock pistols are readily convertible into machine guns because of the geometry around the rear backplate and related internal parts. At the same time, the ATF has reported a dramatic surge in seized conversion devices, about 5,800 Glock-style switches in 2023 compared with just 814 in 2020. Investigators say most arrived from overseas, often mislabeled as phone accessories or car parts, and sold online for $20 to $200. When those cheap parts started showing up at crime scenes, prosecutors looked for a manufacturer to blame, and Glock became the headline target. Other gun companies had already learned what those fights cost. Remington went bankrupt after a massive settlement. Polymer 80 folded when legal fees overwhelmed sales. The precedent was clear: no manufacturer can win a dozen simultaneous cases while paying its own defense. So Glock's executives chose the only survivable path: redesign. By altering backplate geometry, modifying the trigger housing, and adjusting slide dimensions, they could argue the new platform physically prevents illegal conversions. It's a legal strategy disguised as engineering, less about innovation, more about installation. In short, the V-Series isn't born from competition, it's born from courtroom pressure. Inside the redesign, what changed on the V-Series? Now let's break down what Glock actually changed, because this isn't a simple nameplate swap. The V-Series looks familiar from the outside, but the internals tell a different story. The most important update is the back plate, the small metal cover at the rear of the slide. That's the piece lawsuits targeted, claiming it made room for illegal switches. Glock's engineers spent more than a year testing dozens of designs before settling on a new layout with internal ribs that physically block the slot where those devices used to fit. In short, if you try to install one now, it won't go in, period. Next up, the trigger system. The classic cruciform connector, the part that engages the firing pin, has been slightly shifted and reinforced. This change means Gen 5 drop-in trigger kits won't fit cleanly, forcing aftermarket companies to redesign their own parts. Glock says it improves reliability. Insiders say it's to make modifications harder. The slide also received attention. Serrations are now about a millimeter deeper, which Glock claims gives better grip, but the real reason is dimensional, enough to throw off Gen 5 slide plates and conversion parts. Inside the frame, subtle molding tweaks around the locking block pin add just enough difference to stop part swapping between generations. Externally, not much changed, and that's deliberate. Holsters and magazines still fit, so carry users won't notice right away, but anyone planning a custom build will. Most Gen 5 components simply don't seat correctly anymore. Adding to the tension, Glock's rolling out the new lineup under tight control, limited MOS configurations first, and most dealer allocations capped until spring 2025. In other words, even if you want a V-Series, getting one won't be easy, and modifying it will be even harder. The death of .40 caliber. The fall of .40 caliber didn't happen overnight. It was quietly decided in FBI ballistics labs. After the 1986 Miami shootout, the Bureau developed the .40S and W round for more stopping power. For 2 decades, it ruled duty holsters across America, but in 2014, the FBI retested everything using modern hollow point 9mm loads, firing through barriers like wallboard, clothing, and auto glass into calibrated gel. The results stunned everyone. The 9mm performed just as well as .40 in penetration and wound channels, with lower recoil and faster follow-up shots. Departments did the math. Officers could train more effectively and cut ammo budgets by nearly 40%. Within 5 years, nearly every major agency, including the FBI itself, went back to 9mm. That shift crushed .40 demand almost overnight. Glock, which once sold millions of 40-chamber G22s and G23s, watched orders vanish. When the lawsuits hit and production lines tightened, the 40 models were first to go. After November 30th, Glock's 40 caliber era ends, closing a 30-year chapter of American policing and marking the 9mm's complete comeback. Collector rush and aftermarket shockwave. Now it's time to talk about what happened the moment Glock made it official, because that single announcement sent a shockwave through the entire gun market. Dealers scrambled, collectors panicked, and shelves started clearing faster than anyone expected. Within hours, online listings for Gen 5 pistols vanished as buyers grabbed anything stamped G17, G19, or G34 before the December 1st cutoff. The rarest variants disappeared first, the G17L Gen 5 and G34 Gen 5, both already climbing past $1,000, with pristine examples pushing higher every week. Even standard G19 and G17 MOS runs from early production years are suddenly commanding collector-level prices. What used to be a simple handgun purchase is now a race to secure a piece of Glock history. But the market chaos doesn't stop there. The V-Series redesign has thrown the aftermarket into disarray. Drop-in triggers, back plates, and internal kits built for Gen 5 frames no longer fit cleanly. Companies like Zev, Apex, and Overwatch are back to the drawing board, facing new tooling costs and delays that could stretch into next year. Smaller custom shops may not survive the transition. Even holster makers aren't spared. Deeper slide serrations have changed retention pressure just enough to force refits. And with Glock limiting dealer allocations and launching only MOS models at first, shortages are guaranteed. The Gen 5 label has officially crossed from current production to collector status. So here's where things stand. If you need a Glock right now, for duty, home defense, or daily carry, don't wait. The Gen 5 lineup is proven, reliable, and still on shelves, but not for long. After November 30th, they're gone. If you're a collector chasing the last run legends, the 17L, 34, or early MOS batches, secure them now and lock them away. And if you plan to hold out for the V-Series, expect limited stock, long wait lists, and dealer markups well into next year. One last reminder, never handle or even search for conversion switches. Possession is a federal felony, 10 years minimum. Don't risk everything for curiosity. Glock's next chapter is already loading. Gen 6, compensated C models, and more testing underway. I'll be covering every update, every release, and every legal twist the moment it happens. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, and stay ready, because this story is far from over.